Hello family, welcome to Excited Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us also. Share this video to your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you. As you do so, sit back and relax as we dive into the story. He took credit for my work. Now he's unemployed. I'd worked 3 weeks straight on that project. Late nights, endless cups of coffee, and spreadsheets that looked more like pieces of abstract art by the time I was done. It wasn't just a PowerPoint. It was a strategic overhaul of our department's entire operations. The kind of thing that could change the way our company worked, save money, increase efficiency, and actually make people's jobs easier. I poured myself into it because I cared, because I believed in what I did, and I trusted Daniel. That was my mistake. Daniel was my team lead. Charismatic, quick with compliments, and always able to charm the room during meetings. He had this effortless way of making people feel like they mattered, until it didn't suit him anymore. I didn't see it then. I thought we were a good team. I'd bring the brains, and he'd bring the polish. We made things happen. Or so I thought. 2 days before the quarterly leadership meeting, I sent him the final draft of my presentation. "Looks solid," he texted back. "I'll make sure the higher-ups see your genius." I remember smiling at that. I even showed my sister the message, proud that maybe finally someone saw me for what I was worth. The day of the meeting, I sat in the back, my hands sweaty. Our director, Monica, was in attendance, along with 2 senior VPs. It was a big deal, the kind of audience that could launch careers. Daniel stepped up to the front with my slides on the screen behind him. And then he opened his mouth. "My team and I," he began, "have been working on an efficiency model that I developed over the last quarter." I felt my stomach drop. Kept going, slide after slide, using my data, my wording, my design, and my voice. He barely changed anything. It was like watching someone walk into your house, sit on your couch, and call it their own. No credit. No mention. Nothing. I couldn't believe it. My fingers clenched around the pen in my notebook as I watched the VPs nod along, impressed. One even said, "Brilliant work, Daniel." He nodded graciously and replied, "Thank you, it's been a passion project of mine." Passion project? I barely contained the scream building in my throat. I looked around the room, wondering if anyone noticed. But no one did. Or if they did, no one said a word. After the meeting, I confronted him, cornered him in the hallway like a ghost freshly risen from the grave. "Why didn't you mention me?" I asked, my voice shaking. He smiled that same polished smile. "It's a team effort," he said, shrugging. "You're part of the team. We all win when we win together. Except I did the entire thing. And you'll have the satisfaction of knowing your work made a difference," he replied smoothly. "Don't make this personal, okay? It'll look petty." Petty. That word echoed in my mind like a curse. For the next week, he basked in the glory. Got invited to an off-site with leadership. Rumors swirled that he was being considered for a senior manager position. Meanwhile, I was invisible. Again. I couldn't let it go. Not this time. I started documenting everything. Emails, timestamps, drafts, Slack messages. I created a folder with every bit of evidence showing the evolution of the project from start to finish. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I needed it. Because this wasn't just about a stolen project. This was about dignity, about being seen, and about making sure no one ever did this to me, or anyone else, again. After the meeting, everything changed, at least for Daniel. People greeted him like he was some kind of genius. Even the executives started using terms he had stolen from my slides. I heard Monica tell him, "This is the kind of initiative that gets noticed." He just smiled, humble on the surface, smug underneath. And me? I was left in the background, where I had always been. Only this time, it stung worse than ever. I had been invisible before, but this felt like betrayal. Every compliment he got was a slap in the face. The next Monday morning, I was pouring myself a coffee in the break room when I heard 2 coworkers talking near the vending machine. "Heard Daniel's getting fast-tracked," one of them said. "He's got this brilliant operations model. Apparently it's already being pitched to other departments." "Yeah, the other replied. But didn't Anna do most of the groundwork on that? My ears perked up. Well, she was involved. Sure, the first one said, but Daniel's the one who pitched it. Sometimes it's about timing, you know? I turned around, catching their eye. They looked at me, awkward and guilty. I did all the work, I said flatly, my coffee burning my hand. Daniel just presented it. There was silence. A long one. I'm sorry, one of them muttered before walking out. It was in that moment I realized the truth. People knew. They knew he wasn't telling the full story, but no one wanted to stick their neck out. So I decided I would. That night, I went home and organized my evidence. Every saved email, every message, even voice memos I had sent myself while brainstorming. I compiled a timeline. When I started, how it evolved, and every contribution I made. I added screenshots, file metadata, and version histories. It was a digital blueprint of my effort and his theft. I drafted a report titled, Operations Overhaul, Original Author Documentation. At the end, I added a paragraph. This work was presented without my knowledge or consent. I am submitting this record to correct the misattribution and ensure transparency regarding authorship. I didn't know if it would help or hurt, but I knew I couldn't just sit in silence while someone else climbed a ladder I had built. I emailed it to Monica directly. The next morning, I felt like I was walking into a storm. My heartbeat thudded as I checked my inbox, half expecting a reprimand or a polite brush-off. Instead, I got a calendar invite. Subject, clarification meeting. Project attribution. Attendees, Anna, Monica, HR, Daniel. My stomach turned. When the time came, I walked into the conference room trying to steady my hands. Monica sat at the head of the table, calm but unreadable. Daniel gave me a tight smile as I sat down. HR nodded politely. Thank you both for coming, Monica began. I've reviewed the document Anna sent, and I have some concerns about the chain of authorship. Daniel leaned back, casual. It was a collaborative process, he said. I took the initiative to present it on behalf of the team. Monica turned to me. Anna? I did all of it, I said firmly. The slides, the model, the calculations, even the phrasing. He didn't change a single word before presenting it. Daniel scoffed. She's exaggerating. She gave me the slides willingly. There was no ownership discussed. I didn't give you permission to present it as your own. HR stepped in. That's the issue. Attribution and consent. This needs to be investigated. Daniel shifted, in his chair. After the meeting, he cornered me near the elevators. His smile was gone. What are you trying to do? Ruin my career? I looked him in the eye. You already did that. To mine. He glared at me but said nothing. I walked away, knowing that for the first time in a long time, I had stood up for myself, and it felt like the beginning of something I wasn't going to stop. 2 days passed after the meeting. 2 long, tense days where every email alert made my pulse spike. I didn't talk much at work. People noticed. Daniel avoided me, which was just as well. The usual office chatter seemed to pause when I walked into a room. Some offered polite nods. Others whispered when they thought I wasn't listening. Then came the email from HR subject, Attribution Review, request for additional information. They wanted a detailed breakdown of the project, how the work was developed, who was involved, and any communications I had with Daniel. I had already done most of the work compiling it, but this time I went further. I included comments on early drafts, meeting notes from when the idea first took root, and video call logs where I discussed elements with team members, none of which had included Daniel. That night, I stayed up until midnight organizing my submission. I didn't want to leave a single stone unturned. This wasn't just about proving myself right anymore. It was about making sure that people who worked hard and did things the right way didn't keep getting steamrolled by smooth talkers and backdoor politics. The next week was agony. HR launched a quiet audit of the project. They spoke to team members one by one. I heard whispers about people being called into private meetings, about files being pulled from shared drives, about metadata being reviewed. I got a call from Jenna, a colleague who'd helped proofread my slides before. I sent them to Daniel. Hey, I just talked to HR. I told them the truth, that the whole thing was yours, she said. Thanks, I whispered, not trusting myself to say more. You should know. You're not the only one he's done this to. That stopped me cold. What? He did something similar to Marcus last year. Took credit for a research deck. Marcus didn't push back, though. Just let it slide. I guess we all thought that's just how Daniel was. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my balcony, staring at the city lights and wondering how many people like me had stayed quiet. How many times had someone like Daniel risen while stepping on someone else's back, and then the break came. The following Tuesday, Monica called for an emergency department meeting. Everyone was required to attend, including Daniel. I hadn't seen him in days. We filed into the conference room, where Monica stood with a stack of papers in her hand and a stern look on her face. Before we begin, I want to talk about something important, she said. Integrity. You could hear a pin drop. In the last few weeks, concerns have been raised about the misattribution of work on a key operational project. After a thorough review, it's been determined that the majority, if not all, of the intellectual and strategic development was done solely by Anna Patel. Gasps. A few people turned toward me, eyebrows raised. Effective immediately, we will be implementing stricter guidelines for project attribution and presentation credits, Monica continued. And as for the individual who claimed authorship, without contribution, disciplinary action is being taken. Daniel wasn't there. Monica didn't elaborate. She didn't have to. Later that afternoon, I saw the email. Subject: Staff Update. Role Transition. We would like to inform you that Daniel Hart will no longer be with the company. Just like that. I stared at the screen, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Relief. Vindication. Sadness. I had wanted justice, but not like this. Still, I knew it had to happen. If it didn't stop here, it would never stop at all. People approached me cautiously afterward. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner, one person said. You deserve better, said another. Maybe I did. But in that moment, all I could think was, I spoke up. And that made all the difference. The day after Daniel was officially gone, the office felt different. Lighter, maybe. Or maybe that was just me. His absence left a silence that didn't feel empty. It felt clean, like fresh air after a storm. Came in early, expecting a quiet morning, but found a post-it on my monitor. You deserve the credit. Proud of you. M. Monica. Short and sincere. As the morning wore on, people began to stop by my desk. Some awkward, some earnest. All of them clearly wrestling with guilt or admiration or both. Anna, said Jared from Data Analytics. I just wanted to say I'm sorry I didn't speak up. I knew you were behind the project. I should have said something sooner. I nodded. Thanks. I get it. It's hard to push back when no one else is. It won't happen again, he promised. Not if I can help it. Others followed. Even people I barely knew offered their apologies. A few said they were inspired, that watching me hold my ground had made them reconsider what they were willing to tolerate in silence. But there were also some who stayed quiet. People who had always cozied up to Daniel, who had praised him loudly, and benefited from his attention. They avoided my gaze now. I didn't press them. I didn't need their validation. What mattered more was what happened next. That afternoon I was called into a meeting with Monica. It was just the two of us this time. Her office was spacious, lined with shelves and glass awards that caught the light. She gestured for me to sit and closed the door. I want to thank you, she said simply. Not just for the work you did, which was exceptional, but for having the courage to speak up. I stayed quiet, unsure where this was going. You're the kind of person this company needs more of. People who care about the work and have the integrity to protect it. I nodded, still cautious. I appreciate that. She slid a folder across the desk. I'd like to offer you a new role. Project Lead for Strategic Operations. You'll have your own team. Real authority. I want to make sure that your ideas don't just get heard. They get built. I blinked, stunned. I had imagined small vindications, quiet acknowledgments, but this is unexpected, I said. You earned it, she said firmly. This role existed in theory before. Now I'm making it official. You've shown you can lead. I opened the folder. A pay bump. Better title. Autonomy. I need time to think, I said, though I knew what my answer would be. Of course. Take a few days. But know that this wasn't charity. This is recognition. As I walked back to my desk, something felt different inside me. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving the workplace. I was shaping it. I wasn't letting people walk over me anymore. Jenna stopped by as I sat down. You okay? She asked. It's been a whirlwind. I'm good, I said. Better than I expected. You deserve all of it, she said. Daniel fooled a lot of us. But you showed us how to handle it. I smiled, a real one this time. Thanks. It's not over, though. This is just the start. Because now that I had a voice, I wasn't going to stop using it. I spent the next few days preparing to accept the role. I read over the project documentation I'd created again. Not because I doubted myself, but because I wanted to remember what I was capable of. I had built something great, and it wasn't luck or timing. It was skill, effort, vision. And next time someone tried to silence that, they'd have a much harder fight on their hands. I accepted the role. 2 weeks after Daniel's departure, I walked into my first executive strategy meeting as the new project lead for strategic operations. My name was on the agenda. My slide, deck, my own, with no one filtering or repackaging it, was queued up on the screen. I took a deep breath before stepping into the room. It was the same boardroom where Daniel had stolen the spotlight, but this time, I wasn't sitting in the back. I was at the table, literally and figuratively. Monica gave me a nod as I sat beside her. Across from me were 2 senior VPs, a finance director, and a few departmental heads. All eyes were on me now. Not because I'd been thrust into a spectacle, but because they were waiting to hear what I had to say. And I was ready. I walked them through a new proposal, an expansion of the original operations model that Daniel had stolen, but now with added metrics and deeper integration. I had used the last couple of weeks to evolve it, factoring in feedback, scalability, and team efficiency. I spoke with confidence, not bravado. Not performance, just truth and competence. 10 minutes in, I noticed something unexpected. They were engaged. Not just polite listening, but real engagement. Questions, eye contact, nods of understanding. One VP even interrupted to say, "This is exactly the kind of thinking we need." When I finished, the room was silent for a beat. Then came the applause, measured, respectful, and not at all performative. Monica leaned toward me afterward and whispered, "Well done. You've raised the bar." As the meeting ended, one of the senior VPs, a no-nonsense woman named Cheryl, pulled me aside. "Don't lose your edge," she said. "Too many smart people let politics beat them. But what you did, that's the kind of thing that changes a culture." "Thank you," I said, still trying to absorb it all. "Keep pushing," she added. "And don't let anyone take credit for your work ever again." That afternoon, back at my desk, I received an influx of emails. Team leads from other departments asking to collaborate. Invitations to contribute to internal initiatives. Requests for mentoring from junior staff. I was no longer background noise. Later that day, I received a LinkedIn message that made my heart skip. "Daniel Hart has sent you a connection request." I stared at it for a while. No message attached. No apology. Just a silent attempt to re-enter my sphere. Maybe he thought I'd want to move on. Maybe he thought I'd accept out of politeness. I clicked ignore without hesitation. I didn't need closure from him. I had created my own, over. The next week I started building my team. I picked people I trusted. People who had spoken up during the audit, or who I knew had been quiet champions from behind the scenes. I didn't want stars or office politicians. I wanted people who did the work, who cared, who saw value in lifting others up. We moved into a new collaborative space, open desks, writable walls, and an energy I hadn't felt in years. We weren't just working, we were creating. And slowly, something changed in me. I no longer felt like I had to prove myself every day. I no longer braced for someone else to take what I built. I had boundaries now. I had recognition. I had power. Not the kind that lords over others, but the kind that comes from finally being seen and heard. One evening, long after most people had left the office, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the city. It had been just a few weeks since that disastrous meeting where Daniel hijacked my work, but it felt like a lifetime ago. I had been quiet, overlooked, convenient to ignore, but not anymore. I didn't just survive what Daniel did. I rewrote the story. With my new role came new responsibilities. And with those responsibilities came a higher level of visibility. People across departments now knew my name, not because I demanded attention, but because the work spoke for itself. But along with the recognition came something more fragile, more meaningful: respect. My calendar filled up quickly. Meetings, strategy sessions, one-on-one mentorships. I was being invited into rooms I'd never been allowed in before. Not just to listen, to contribute, to lead. One morning, while reviewing project proposals, I received a knock on my office door. "Hey, got a minute?" It was Marcus, the colleague Jenna had mentioned. The one Daniel had apparently stepped on before me. "Sure," I said, waving him in. He closed the door behind him, a nervous energy in his posture. "I just wanted to say, thank you," he said, "for standing up to Daniel. I didn't have the guts to do it when he did it to me. I told myself it wasn't worth the fight, but watching what you did, how you handled it, made me realize I should have spoken up too." "You're speaking now," I replied. "That still matters." He sat down across from me. He made me feel like I was crazy, like maybe I hadn't done as much as I thought, but deep down I knew. I just didn't know how to prove it. I nodded. He was good at that, making you doubt yourself, making you feel small. "Well, he's not around anymore," Marcus said with a half-smile. "And you are. That says a lot." After he left, I sat for a while and thought about how many people like Marcus were still out there, still wondering if their voices were worth hearing. That afternoon, I proposed something bold in our leadership sync, a company-wide initiative to protect and empower contributors. "We need more than policy," I said. "We need culture change." I introduced a pilot program called Credit Where It's Due, a system to track contributions more transparently across projects. We would log idea origin points, collaboration chains, and attribution logs. It wouldn't be punitive. It would be protective. The proposal was met with cautious curiosity. Monica spoke first. "You're proposing a change not just in documentation, but in mindset." "Yes," I said, "because the next time someone like Daniel tries to hijack someone's work, I don't want the victim to have to build a case from scratch. I want the truth to be evident from the start." Cheryl, the senior VP, nodded. "Let's try it. Start small, track outcomes. If it works, we roll it out company-wide." And just like that, the first real change took root, not just for me, but for the company. In the weeks that followed, our pilot team became a kind of model for how collaboration and accountability could coexist. Productivity rose, so did morale. People felt safe sharing ideas again, knowing they'd be credited fairly. One afternoon, I received a message from Jenna. "Did you hear about Daniel?" I hesitated, then replied, "No. What happened?" "He applied at Whitestone Systems. Got rejected. Apparently someone on the hiring panel saw the write-up from our internal audit. Word travels fast." I didn't smile. Not really. But I did feel something close to closure. He hadn't just failed upward, as so many manipulators often do. His actions had consequences, and the professional world, at least this part of it, was finally learning how to spot the difference between real leaders and opportunists. Later that night, I thought about what I would have told myself back in that first meeting when he took my work. What I wished someone had told me. Maybe something like this: "You're not overreacting. Your work matters. Your voice matters. Speak up, and the right people will listen." because eventually, they did. And now I had a reputation, not as the person who got stepped on, but as the one who stood up, spoke out, and changed everything. With every passing week, the culture around me began to shift, not because of top-down mandates, but because people started believing that fairness was actually possible. And that shift wasn't just happening in boardrooms and email chains. It was happening in whispered conversations, in new partnerships forming across departments, in the way people introduce themselves now with quiet pride in their roles. I found myself in a strange new position. People were asking me for guidance, not just advice on process or execution, but on how to survive the politics, how to speak up without losing everything, how to hold on to your integrity in a place that didn't always reward it. And that's when I realized I had become the mentor I never had. It started with Mia, a young data analyst from the marketing team. She sent me a brief message. Would love to grab 15 minutes if you're open to talking about your journey. Just trying to figure out how to navigate this place. We scheduled a coffee. She showed up nervous, gripping her notebook like a lifeline. She reminded me of myself when I started. Smart, observant, careful not to say too much. We talked about everything. How to advocate for your own work without seeming arrogant, how to handle team members who borrow ideas without permission, how to choose your battles. By the end, she looked lighter, more focused. Thanks, she said. I thought I had to either play the game or disappear. But maybe there's a third option. There is, I told her. You just have to build it. That coffee turned into a regular check-in, and soon, others followed. Informal mentoring circles started forming. People were sharing credit openly. I even heard someone say in a team huddle, "This part was Mia's idea, by the way." She cracked the model. It was happening. Quietly, steadily. The culture was evolving. Then one morning, something unexpected hit my inbox. Subject: Speaking opportunity. National Women in Leadership. Summit they wanted me to speak. Not just attend, speak. Apparently, someone from the summit's organizing team had heard about our Credit Where It's Due initiative. They wanted a session on accountability and recognition in corporate structures. At first, I froze. I wasn't a public speaker. I was a strategist, a behind-the-scenes builder. But then I remembered what I'd told Mia, and so many others. Your voice matters. So I accepted. Preparing for the talk was like reliving the entire ordeal again. I went through my old presentation decks, the ones Daniel had stolen. I reread emails from those days when I felt powerless. I even found the notebook I'd scribbled in the night after the big meeting where he claimed my work. The margins were filled with anxious thoughts, crossed-out phrases, and one clear, underlined sentence. I deserve better. And now, I had it. The day of the summit arrived. As I stood backstage waiting for my cue, I wasn't nervous in the way I expected. I wasn't afraid of forgetting my lines or being judged. I was ready. Ready to tell the story not of a fall or a betrayal, but of a recovery, of what came after the theft. When I stepped onto the stage and looked out into the audience, hundreds of women, all navigating their own battles, I spoke from a place I hadn't accessed in years. I want to talk about what happens, I began, when someone takes credit for your work, and what happens when you take it back. Afterward, the applause felt unreal. People came up to share their own stories. Some cried. Some just said, "Thank you." That night, as I sat in my hotel room, looking out at the skyline of a city I didn't know, I felt something settle in me. I had done what I once thought was impossible. I turned a betrayal into a blueprint. Not just for myself, but for everyone who had ever been overlooked, talked over, or pushed aside. 6 months after Daniel was fired, our company held its annual Innovation Summit, a major internal event where departments showcased breakthroughs, projects, and cultural initiatives. It was the kind of event Daniel would have once dominated, all charm and smoke. But this time, I was the keynote speaker. The announcement surprised a lot of people. My name on the top of the program, above vice presidents and product heads. Some whispered, others beamed, and I knew there were those who quietly wondered how I'd gotten there. I didn't owe them an explanation, but I gave them one anyway, through action, The auditorium was packed. Colleagues, clients, even members of the board. I stood before them and told the story that had been reshaping the company for months, not by naming names, but by spotlighting the truth. I want to share a story about silence, I began. And what happens when we break it? I spoke about how easily credit can be stolen in corporate life, and how hard it is to get it back. I described the fear, the self-doubt, the isolation of watching someone else receive applause for your sleepless nights and inspired ideas. But I also talked about what happened when that silence was finally broken. About the audit, about the new role, about the systems we were building so that no one else would have to fight the same quiet war. The applause was long, not explosive, but real. The kind that fills the room and lingers. The kind that says, "We see you now." After the event, I walked the floor. People shook my hand, shared their stories, thanked me, not for the presentation, but for proving it could be done. That standing up didn't have to mean falling alone. And then, near the back of the room, I saw him. Daniel. He wasn't a guest. He wasn't invited. He was working for the catering company. Black shirt, tray in hand, head slightly bowed. He saw me, and for a moment, our eyes locked. His expression was unreadable. Not embarrassment. Not rage. Something in between. Recognition, maybe. The reality of the reversal. He turned away first. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. That evening, I walked into my office just as the sun was dipping below the skyline. The city glowed gold. My desk was scattered with notes, thank yous from colleagues, meeting requests from executives, and a small card that simply said, "Because of you, I spoke up today." A friend. I smiled. I had arrived here through fire, through sabotage, self-doubt, late nights, and quiet victories. Through betrayal, and a choice to respond not with revenge, but with resilience. Daniel thought stealing my work would make him unstoppable. But the truth? He lit a fire that forged something stronger in me. Not just ambition, but clarity. Not just success, but impact. I didn't just get back what he stole. I built something bigger in its place. And now, every day, I wake up not wondering if I'll be seen, but how I can help others be seen too. Because when you finally take credit for your own story, there's no one left who can take it from you.